You are listening to Veggie Doctor Radio, and this is episode number 122. Welcome to Veggie Doctor Radio. I am your host, Dr. Yami, board-certified pediatrician, certified lifestyle medicine physician, certified health and wellness coach, author, speaker, mother, wife, and human being. I passionately believe in the power of diet, habits, and mindset in sparking and sustaining well-being and joy in our lives. This podcast combines expert interviews and thoughtful monologues to explore plant-based nutrition, lifestyle medicine, parenting, mindset, and other exciting and fun topics. I hope that these episodes inspire you, uplift you, and equip you with the knowledge and tools to live your best life. Are you ready to get started? Let's do it.
There's so many parenting books out there, right? There's so many options out there for like workbooks and textbooks and master classes, and they're all wonderful in their own way, but a lot of them focus on the child. Um, and in reality, I feel like so much of parenting is about the parent. It's about how we experience things. It's about how we have expectations of ourselves, of how our day is going to go, of our spouses, of our kids or whoever. And the friction happens when those expectations are not met.
Hello, veggie lovers, and thank you so much for joining me today. Guess what? Veggie Doctor Radio turned 3 years old this month. Can you believe it? And we have started the 4th season with a refresh. So a new cover art, new music, a new fresh intro, and it's time for some new beginnings. I hope you like it and enjoy the changes. And I hope that you've been enjoying the superior listening experience. However, I'll have to say that today is very odd. I am in my bedroom recording today because my kitchen remodel started today. And I couldn't go record down in the basement because my husband is post-call from a night shift in the hospital. He's an internal medicine hospitalist. And I can't go record outside because it's hazardous air quality. And I can't record at my office because now I'm subletting my office to an amazing dermatology nurse practitioner. So there's probably going to be some background of demolition noises, which is really hilarious. But, the show must go on. So, thank you so much for joining me for this amazing episode. I know you're going to love it, but I have a really fun giveaway in honor of Veggie Doctor Radio turning 3 years old and starting the 4th season. I want to give away 3 30-minute laser coaching sessions. Yes. You can meet with me over Zoom for 30 minutes and I will coach you on one issue that you're having, either with yourself or with your child when it comes to nutrition or plant-based nutrition or a goal you want to reach or any of that kind of stuff. I am a national board certified health and wellness coach, so I can help with those kinds of things. And I did a few of these just to do some market research, and they are just so fun and I love it. In order to qualify to be entered to win one of these 3 30-minute laser coaching sessions with me, I'm asking you to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts for my podcast, Veggie Doctor Radio. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and rate and review it. Before you hit submit, take a screenshot of your review so I can see what your username is and that you left one. And then I will pick the winners and I will let you know. Because if you take a screenshot and let me know over Instagram, you can DM me on Instagram. I'm at the Dr. Yami. Or you can email me at Yami at Dr. Yami, DoctorYami.com, the screenshot. And then we will enter you and we will be selecting winners at the end of the month. So we'll just say that you have the whole rest of the month to submit. And on October the 1st, I will select 3 winners and I will notify you. So I will notify you with the way that you contacted me, whether it's Instagram DM or email. I will reply and let you know that you won. So thank you so much for being a loyal listener. I'm so appreciative of you, and I hope that you're loving the updates, and I'm looking forward to many more awesome episodes to share with you. Really quick before I talk more about this episode, I want to tell you about this cool new app called Vegan Maps, MAPS, Vegan Maps. So this is an app where you can explore over 10,000 restaurants, eateries, and cafes in 150 countries. So you can go in and see what's around you, or if you're going to go visit somewhere, you can find if there's any vegan restaurants. They can leave comments, reviews, those kinds of things. I love that there's more resources like this because it makes it easier and easier for people that lead a vegan or plant-based lifestyle to find amazing places to eat. So check it out. It's called Vegan Maps, MAPS, and you can download it on your iPhone and start exploring it. They're making lots of updates to it, adding new restaurants, but right now it already has over 10,000 vegan restaurants that you can check out. All right, I hope you check it out, Vegan Maps. I just got done interviewing an amazing lady, and we had such just a beautiful conversation. I know you're going to love this episode. Dr. Seema Desai is so amazing, and she has used her experience, even though it's been very painful at times, to learn something and to grow. And now she's using that to teach us so that we can experience more fulfillment and joy in our lives through mindfulness. But before I tell you more about Dr. Desai, please remember that I have lots of amazing free resources at dryami.com/free. So you can learn how to replace dairy in your life with recipes, meat replacements, eating out guide, plant-based shopping list, lots of goodies there, all free. Download them one, download them all. It's at dryami.com/free. In addition, I have an affiliate store. So if you feel like you're in the shopping mood, go to dryami.com/shop, SHOP, and see if there's any products on there that you were thinking of buying anyway. And we can get a small percentage of that to help Veggie Doctor Radio and also Veggie Doctor TV on YouTube. Thank you so much for all of you that have already purchased my book, A Parent's Guide to Intuitive Eating, How to Raise Kids Who Love to Eat Healthy. I so appreciate you reading the book and hearing your feedback. I really appreciate if you would leave me an Amazon review of my book and let me know what you thought. I've been just so grateful that has helped so many moms feel better about themselves, but also the feeding journey that they're on, feeding their children and having less stress. So thank you so much to all of you loyal listeners, readers of my book, people that have found me through the pediatric series and through all of the other great influencers on Instagram. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm here because of you, and I'm very grateful for you and this journey that we're on together of personal growth and development, learning how to embrace new habits and behaviors that will give us the health, well-being, and longevity that we desire. Just want to remind you that the information on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not meant to replace careful evaluation and treatment. So if you have concerns about you or your child, whether it's your eating, nutrition, growth, or mental health, please make sure that you are consulting with a medical professional. All right, let's talk about Dr. Seema Desai. So, Seema is from Austin, Texas, which is a really cool place. I love Texas. I grew up there, and Austin is really neat. And she wears lots of hats. She's a wife, mom, dentist, and a yoga teacher in training. And she has a wide range of interests, but yoga and mindfulness towards herself, towards others and towards the planet is really what's closest to her heart. And I'm going to quote her. She says, "I love being a mom, but my journey as a mother did not start as I expected. I found yoga as relief from postpartum depression. And as time went on and my yoga practice deepened, the mindfulness began to follow and blossom. I came to the realization that I find dentistry fulfilling because I get to help people in physical pain, but that through yoga, I could help people not only in physical pain, but emotional pain as well." And in this conversation, Seema and I talk about mindfulness, we talk about mindset, we talk about her very honest and very raw story of postpartum depression. So there's lots of authenticity there, but we also give tips. So she has lots of great tips on how you can start to integrate mindfulness into your life and how you can start to teach mindfulness to your children. And I know you're going to really love this conversation. So I hope that you get something out of it and get some good tips to apply for yourself and your family. But definitely, email me and let me know what you loved about this episode. You can find Dr. Seema Desai on Instagram at Dr. Seema Desai, and her name is spelled Seema. Last name is Desai. She also has a website that she blogs on, and it's seemasaysnamaste.com. And again, her first name is spelled Seema. Okay, well, I won't delay it any further because I know that you're going to get so many amazing nuggets from this conversation. So now on to this beautiful interview between myself and Dr. Seema Desai. Dr. Seema Desai, thank you so much for joining me on Veggie Doctor Radio today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been looking forward to this for a really long time.
Well, this is really fun. Before we started recording, I was telling you how right now my kids have started school, and it seems like all of a sudden my life has become rushed again, which I don't like. So I'm glad we're going to be talking about mindfulness today because I think that's so important and something that can be so beneficial and helpful for so many people. More people need that. But before we get to the topic of mindfulness, I want to know about your journey. Tell me about your health and well-being journey.
All right. Well, so I have two children. I'm a mom of two. And I feel like I wanted to be a mom for as long as I can remember. And even in college, like I would drag my now husband, we would go into like Pottery Barn Kids and, I would just daydream of how lovely motherhood was going to be and how perfect it was going to be. And um, I think it was such a slap in the face to go through. My first pregnancy was health-wise, it was perfect. It was, what anyone would hope for. But there was a lot of change and transition happening. We moved cities, we put our house up on the market. My husband was studying for his critical care boards and started a new job as an attending out of residency. We didn't know anyone, where we moved, and it was just a very, very transitional time.
Mhm.
And I don't know because I didn't have a mindfulness practice. I wasn't really aware of just how heavily things were affecting me. I guess you could say. So long story short, the I had my son, and it was a very, very incongruent experience to what I thought it was going to be versus reality. Um, and I will never forget. The doctors, pulled him out, and they immediately put him on my chest for skin to skin. And my immediate reaction was, I looked at my husband and I go, "Get him off of me. He stinks." And I went into this whole it just went downhill from there. It
Mm.
was such a negative spiral, and I mean, of course, he looked at me like, "How could you possibly be saying this? I mean, since we were in college, you wanted to be a mom, like, this is what you wanted," and I was shocked the words were coming out of my mouth. It felt like an out-of-body experience, and the guilt of even as I said those words, of the guilt just
Mm.
shattered me. It broke me. Um, and it was a really, really heavy experience. And it's funny, they always say like you need to step back and take a look at the picture from a a different viewpoint, right? Like it's hard to see things when you're in the thick of it. And we took him home. He's healthy, and I'm, again, physically healthy. And I don't know, this whole experience, I kept telling my husband, something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with me. And he was like, no, babe, you're just tired. This is normal. This is what it's supposed to be. And it took him a long time to realize that things weren't right.
Mhm.
And it took me a long time to find the courage to stand up to him and say, "No, I'm really not okay."
Yeah.
And I've gone into all of this like in detail on like I've written several blog posts that are up on my website about my experiences with postpartum depression. But I found yoga as therapy for that. Um, and so I really have my firstborn to thank
Yeah.
because of him, I have this beautiful, beautiful journey, and I'm so proud and so happy that I can share it with other people.
Wow. That just gave me chills. What an incredible story, and thank you so much for your honesty and authenticity because, I mean, you're not alone. I mean, this happens to so many women, and you're right, the guilt, the shame, it's huge. I experienced postpartum depression as well, and I remember when my son was around 2 weeks old. We lived in Texas at the time, which is very close to Mexico. And my husband was already back in, working. We were in medical school. And I thought, well, my husband should get back in about an hour. If I leave now, the baby will be fine. He'll come home and,
Wow.
he'll see the baby and everything will be good. And I'll be on my way to Mexico and I can just leave. Like I literally was like hatching this
Wow.
plan of how can I just escape this because it felt like a prison. And I, like you, of course, also really wanted to be a mother and had this dream and everything. So I think that it probably happens more than we think, which why as a pediatrician, I tell parents all the time, especially first-time parents before they have their baby, that it can feel like jumping into a pool of ice cold water. Like you
Yes.
think it's going to be this like warm ocean, tropical, vacation. That's what you're imagining, right? We
Right.
romanticize it. Like all the ads, they just show happy moms and perfect babies and perfect situations. But I tell them it's like jumping into a pool of ice cold water. You're just gonna have to do it and you'll adapt and eventually it's gonna be that warm vacation paradise feeling thing, but usually not in the beginning. I mean, some
Right.
people get lucky and it is, but I think that the more we share these stories, the more we do normalize that some people, whether it's chemical, hormonal, situational, just like you were talking about, lots of change, we don't experience it the same way as other people. So thank you so much for sharing that story. And I guess thank you also for having the persistence of knowing this isn't right, but I want to make it right. Right. Like you said, what can I do? So you found yoga. How did you find yoga? Had you already done yoga before or did you learn about it during the process? Tell me about that.
No, so we decided to put my son in Montessori school when he was 18 months old just
Mhm.
because I'll be honest, I couldn't hack it. Like I
Yeah.
couldn't do the stay-at-home mom thing. I needed a break.
Mhm.
And also for him, but we made the decision to put him in school. And across the street from his Montessori school was this Bikram yoga studio. And so one day I was like, when we were looking at schools and stuff, I noticed it and it kind of like planted a seed in my mind, like, oh, I'll be able to at least get out and be able to do this. And my husband, before we started him was like, why don't you go try it out? Like, I'll watch him. Like, he won't die. Like, I
Yeah.
promise he'll be fine. Just leave him with me. And so he did encourage me to to push me out the door. And once I got my body moving, though I will say I don't think Bikram yoga is necessarily the right thing for a new mom if you have not been practicing it before. But
Mhm.
regardless, I found movement and I found yoga, and it's just something about it that really called to me. Mindfulness
Mhm.
was not something that I necessarily um, had on the forefront here, but it was
Mhm.
just more about the workout at that point. But I knew it was going to be low impact, that sort of
Mhm.
thing. Um, and yeah, it just kind of stuck with me. So I did that for a little bit, and then it really wasn't working. My body was telling me that it was just too intense, that type of yoga. So I coupled it with acupuncture, and then my acupuncturist suggested that I try a different style of yoga. And I just started on YouTube. There's tons and tons and tons of great yoga teachers that start out that way, and so I just found stuff on YouTube, and then yeah, long story short, it was just kind of fated to happen. I feel.
Yeah. So it's kind of more of an evolution that you discovered it and started exploring different methods. Well, tell me about mindfulness. How do you define mindfulness and how has it influenced you in your life with parenting and your child and all of that?
Yeah. Well, so I define mindfulness as being consciously aware. Um, And I think from the outset, that sounds exhausting, and it is. If you try to run a marathon before you know how to even sit, right? Like as a baby, you would never expect a 4-month-old to run a marathon. And that's most people, especially modern society, we are just so geared. You said it yourself, right? The simple shift of having to um, incorporate school in your schedule, right? Like it just throws everybody off, and we're so focused on go, 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 get it done, get it done, get it done. Our society has groomed us to believe that unless we are bleeding, sweating, crying, and in pain, we didn't earn it.
Yeah.
And it's the reality is it's just so far from the truth. But so that's kind of my take on mindfulness is learning to be consciously aware, and you just start somewhere. I equate it to like a spider web. Where have you heard of the story of the golden Buddha?
I think so, but you have to refresh my memory.
Okay. So in 1957, there was this monastery, and they were moving this clay statue of the Buddha. And in the process of moving it, one of the monks noted a crack, and from the crack was emanating a golden light. Now, there are many versions of the story, but this is the one that I heard, so this is the one I'm going to share. So, upon further investigation, they found out that there was actually a golden statue, and it had been covered with clay in an effort to protect it from an attack that was years and years before. That monastery had been attacked by the Burmese army, and all the monks had been subsequently killed in the attack. So no one
Mhm.
knew about this. The monks then had covered that golden Buddha in clay in an effort to protect it because they knew how valuable it was. But I liken that to everyone has this inner self, right? This
Mhm.
truly perfect, enlightened version that knows the answers. Like deep down inside, we know the next right action, but we've been covered by layers of trauma, um, negative experiences, positive experiences, things that just reframe how we think. And so, in an effort to I feel like at the center of that spider web that I was referring to is this golden statue, right?
Yeah.
And things like diet, sleep, exercise, the types of friends you have, where you live, your education, not only your degreed education, but also how much you know outside of that formal schooling. All of those things can serve as layers of clay.
Mm.
And once you start to bring mindfulness to one area, it's connected to the next and the next and the next. And gradually, slowly over time, you will become more conscious. You will become more aware of varying aspects of life in different ways. And so it's just your own beautiful personal journey.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it reminds me what you're saying kind of reminds me of having the ability to tune in to your intuition, right? The more we practice mindfulness, yoga, meditation, the more we remove all these other layers, we can get down to our core inner knowing, our inner wisdom,
Right.
and also our inner worthiness, maybe, you know?
Absolutely.
Whenever you talked about how in our society we really feel like we have to have blood, sweat, and tears in order to feel like we earn something, my oldest son is 15 and a half, and he is a go-getter. Like, he inherited my genes of wanting to achieve, and he confessed to me one night because he's so open and honest with me, and I just love that he just tells me what's on his mind. He confessed to me that he felt that if he wasn't working hard and it didn't feel a little bit painful, like if it didn't feel like it was just a little bit difficult to acquire, that it wasn't good enough because he's, of course, naturally talented in a lot of
Sure.
things. So some things come very easily to him, but he would make it harder than it needed to be.
Right.
And so sitting down as a parent being like, baby, if you have this belief, it's going to affect the rest of your life that you feel like you have to make everything harder in order to earn it or in order to it to be worth it. And I think a lot of us have that belief. We do
Sure.
believe that life has to be hard in order to feel like we're good enough.
Right.
So I'm so glad you brought that up. Well, tell me about mindfulness and parenting specifically. How can we use mindfulness in our parenting journey to improve not only our own mindfulness, but our relationship with our children?
Sure. It's funny because uh, I actually did a post on this about how we as parents and, we're always looking. There's so many parenting books out there, right? There's so many options out there for like workbooks and textbooks and master classes, and they're all wonderful in their own way. But a lot of them focus on the child. Um, and in reality, I feel like so much of parenting is about the parent. It's about how
Yes.
we experience things. It's about how we have expectations of ourselves, of how our day is going to go, of our spouses, of our kids or whoever. And the friction happens when those expectations are not met.
Yes.
So what I've learned, I have taken the positive parenting solutions masterclass. I think it's wonderful. Love and logic, the whole brain child, there's so many, I think it's called Happy Parent, Peaceful Parent, Happy Child, all wonderful, wonderful, wonderful books. I would highly recommend them. But at the end of it, I was feeling like they were all great tools for me to say, like, in the moment, right? They were all provided great things. But what I really needed to change was my mindset. And
Mhm.
if you're not upset, if you're not triggered, then you can handle any given situation with so much more grace, the way you would want to be, the way you'd want to handle them. And so I think what mindfulness, bringing that into your life will so wonderfully gift your children with this model behavior of, how to treat themselves, how to treat their siblings. Um, I think that it's really, really impacted how we parent. I came from the mindset of I used to put my kid in timeout. I used to believe that punishment was kind of the way to go. And as a child, my mom yelled at me all the time. Um, it wasn't the best childhood. It was not the way I would want to raise my children, but we have trauma that we carry and we all do. And so that was kind of how I was doing things and it wasn't working. And so when I started this mindfulness journey, I think that, it really opened up and exposed just how much I was carrying around. And I feel like we all have that. And if we can just bring attention to it and treat ourselves with love and kindness, that will translate to our relationship with our child.
Mm.
The needs for punishment will go away, right? Because you can talk it out and there's a rational, even with a 3-year-old, I've done it. And it's not going to be this deep, deep conversation, but we can certainly bring mindfulness and attention to how we're feeling into every day to help us better communicate and be better with our kids.
Yeah. Well, I think that that first thing you said about expectations is huge
Right.
because when we have mindfulness, we're aware of our thoughts and our feelings. And sometimes we realize that maybe our expectations are unrealistic or our expectations are what's leading us to have this stress and tension
Exactly.
that goes toward, like I used to be a yeller. I'm just gonna admit that right now. When my kids were little, I was a yeller. That's how I achieved things, but obviously it wasn't achieving anything, right? Like I thought it would
Sure.
achieve things. And I learned how to not be a yeller because I found that it was my anxiety. Like I
Hmm.
was having all of these expectations about what life should be like. And my anxiety was leading me to, display it that way and try to control my children that way. It was like more of a control thing.
Right. Right.
But talk a little bit about expectations. I want to hear about what are some expectations that we have either of ourselves or our children that are leading to some of these conflicts that we're having?
I think the biggest 2 are expectations of ourselves. If you're the type of parent that gets down on yourself about being upset, like, "Oh, darn it, I got mad. I don't I wanna have a day where it's just a perfect day where I don't get upset," right? That's
Mhm.
an unrealistic expectation. Because the reality is we as humans we're having the human experience. There's going to be
Mhm.
an entire range of emotions that we experience in maybe a 24-hour period or even an hour period. And that is
Mhm.
completely okay. So letting go of holding yourself to this standard of, again, going back to, if there's no pain, no sweat, no tears, we don't need to be the martyrs, falling on our swords, constantly, putting our own wellness at the end, right?
Mhm.
Like, I feel like so many moms and dads say, "Oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to, sit and eat." Mindful eating is like a big thing in our house, and there's just little things that you can do every day to fill your bucket, and I think that we have these unrealistic expectations of ourselves, to where that's where we kind of get us in trouble. And it's the second you stray from that path, if you're type A, especially, I know you know what I'm talking about. It's
Mhm.
very, very difficult to get back on the horse and press that reset button. But another example, I'll give you an example of what happened yesterday. So we started virtual school last week, and of course it's a new routine. But my son was upstairs, and we heard the basketball kind of thumping around in the playroom, and, my husband and I both looked at each other, and, we were like, "What is he doing? What's," and I saw my husband, just his face just changed, right? And he started to take this deep inhale to project aloud. He's a very loud person, this voice, right? And I was like, "Hold on, hold on." And I just ran to the stairs and was like, "Hey, bud, um, what's going on?" Because somewhere in there, with a lot of practice, I realized, hey, this is something new for him. And it's not clear that our expectations are, when it's school time, it's school time. And we need to work on finding scheduled breaks so that we're all on the same page, right? Like, and it took not even a second for my son to be like, "Oh, yeah, you know what, mom?" And he explained it to me, right? He was like, "I was just taking a break. I did XYZ, and then, but I'm just gonna shoot, like, I wanna see if I can get 10 baskets, and then I'm gonna go do ABC," right?
Mhm.
There was no yelling. There was no, but that was just that reminder of, wait, what is it that I'm expecting and what I think he should be doing, versus the child going, but wait, I have a plan and I'm capable of executing that plan. But I just need you to stop and listen, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that plan's going to work, maybe it won't, maybe we need to work together to reformulate. But giving them that validity to help with their day, I found has really helped with the expectation battle too.
Yeah, I love it. And how old is he?
He is 8.5.
Yeah. So, and I think too, what I was going to talk about as far as expectations is sometimes we have unrealistic expectations about our children themselves and what we think they should be and what they should achieve and how they should act. And
Oh,
just bringing
yeah.
it back to my area of, passion, what they should eat.
Yes.
Like some parents feel like they're not successful until their kid becomes a perfect broccoli eater and is checking off
Mhm.
every single food group at every single meal. And that brings so much anxiety that then leads to a lot of conflict. So I
Right.
think you're right. It's really about stepping back, taking a deep breath, and being like, how can I approach this situation? Are my expectations realistic?
Right.
Am I seeing over and over and over again that there's just stress and anxiety and conflict? And if so, there's probably something there that needs to
Right.
be adjusted.
Right.
So that's
Right.
a great example. I love that story. Well, tell me more about how we as parents, because I love that approach about focusing more on ourselves. When we improve our own mindfulness, when we grow as a human, when we learn more about our own thoughts and feelings, we can become better parents. So,
Sure.
give us some tips as far as incorporating mindfulness into our own health habits and behaviors.
I think, a lot of us are on autopilot. So for example, I'll use toothpaste because I'm a dentist, and that's, kind of what, it's my kick, is that. But you buy the same toothpaste, right? You buy the same toothpaste that your mom bought, and then when you go off to college, you buy your own toothpaste. You kind of buy, and it's just years and years and years of buying the same toothpaste without ever stopping to consider, like, what is in my toothpaste? Why am I picking this brand? Why, and that's kind of how life is. We just go through these same motions without waking up and realizing that we do have choices, right? So, um, something that we do in our house, as far as bringing mindfulness to our lives, is we stop and we do something called check into our bodies. We have a little timer on smart home device, and it'll go off whatever works for you and your family, right? If you guys aren't home, then obviously it going off in the middle of the day is not going to help. But it just tells us like check into our bodies, and the whole idea is to stop and listen to see, am I hurting? Do I feel thirsty? Do I feel hungry? Do I need to go to the bathroom? What's my breathing like? Like all these little questions, you can really just do a quick body scan. And usually there's kind of something off that you can fix.
Mhm.
And just bringing much more attention to your physical body, eventually that habit will kind of bring more awareness to where you are mentally. And it's a really, really great tool that the whole family can use um, to develop this mindfulness muscle together.
I love that tip. And yeah, there's so much to check into because, like you said, we just go through life. We have to go one task to another. And sometimes we carry with us this burden of pain or hunger or whatever, but even just emotional heaviness that we haven't addressed. So we just
Right,
take it on and we're just like, raging at people or whatever, but we haven't actually taken a moment to tune in and be like, okay, I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling
right.
excited or whatever, tuning into our bodies. I have a quick question for you. Do you feel like when it comes to incorporating some of these techniques for your whole family that both parents have to be on board?
It's certainly helpful. Um, and that's, I think you would agree that most parents would agree that if one parent is not on the same page, it is just astronomically more difficult to
Mhm,
be able to create and keep a healthy habit. Uh, so I would definitely say that this is something that both parents need to at least understand or value
mhm,
before trying to force it. Because if that's not where your family is, um, in that evolutionary journey to be able to receive that healing energy, then it's not going to work.
yeah,
Mindset is absolutely so key. So yeah, it definitely helps to have both parents on board.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, I think for us, like my husband is away a lot, but he's home a lot. And just the simple communication of, hey, we're doing like the check into our bodies thing. When we started doing it, he was like, I don't know what you're doing. Like Alexa's going off 3 times a day. And you guys are all tapping your foreheads and your chests and your stomachs, and there's deep breathing. And he's like, I don't know what's going on. Um, and the kids would be like, Daddy, check into your body. And he's just sitting here like, I don't know what you're saying. And we just kind of fail to communicate like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing. This is why we're tapping. This is why we're tapping here. And once he got it, it was a lot easier for him and now he reminds us, like, hey, check your buttons, lady. Like you seem a little off. And um, so yeah.
I love that story. That's super cute. He's like, "Where am I? Who are you people? What's going on?"
I
I
just
just
got
got
home.
transported to an alternate universe.
Exactly. He's like, "I don't know what's going on here. I don't even know if I'm in the right house. Like, what's
Super
happening?"
cute. Well, talk to me about meditation. How do you feel about meditation, both for adults and for children?
I think it's such a powerful tool. Um, I think in order to be you don't need meditation to be mindful, but you do need mindfulness to practice meditation.
Mhm,
I think mindfulness can be more generally applied. Meditation is very specific, but I think people when they hear that word, they think of this old Indian sage in a remote cave in Kashmir, or the Himalayas, and sitting on uncomfortable positions for hours at a time. And really, there's no right way to do meditation. In this modern world, we're living in unprecedented times. Meditation can be as simple as a single conscious breath. It does not need to
mhm.
be fancy. You don't need to diffuse essential oils. You don't need to be wearing Lululemon. Um, you know, it is a very, very, and I will say it's simple, but I did not say easy because taking
Yes.
that single conscious breath can be extremely difficult. So um, I would
And do
definitely
you
say to start small.
feel, how do you feel about teaching meditation to children?
I think it's a need, um, just like food and clean water.
Mhm.
I believe with every fiber of my being that if every child were taught mindfulness and meditation, our world would be so different.
Mhm.
Um, because with meditation, with mindfulness, what eventually ends up happening is you start to treat yourself with a lot of love and care, and how you talk to yourself translates to how you treat other people and how you treat the world around you. And it's no surprise that the people that are caught up in the anxiety and the day to day are the people that are, and I'm not trying to make this accusatory or judgmental at all, but it's just kind of a pattern that I've noticed is the people that don't care about the earth or realize that it's a problem. Um, it I feel like that can kind of be seen, evidenced in other areas of their life, right? Because the way that they talk to themselves, the way they talk to their kids, the way they talk to their friends or spouses or whatever, I think it's all just so deeply connected. So I think
Mhm.
that allowing these children to experience the natural state that we're born with, this is innate ability to stay with our breath and be in the here and now. Um, you know, Standard American lifestyle leads to standard American health problems.
Mhm.
So if we want to avoid the anxiety, the diabetes, the heart disease, you know, you probably have, 50,000 other ADHD, as a pediatrician. There's so many things that can really be avoided or improved with just breath. And I strongly believe that it's a need.
Yes, yes, for sure. And yes, all the mood disorders too, like
Right.
this epidemic of depression and suicide we have. I mean, I feel like it becomes a thought habit to think that way, to think in a depressed state or to be anxious all the time. And even though I do think that certain people have genetic predispositions to maybe leaning that way, we can
Absolutely.
learn skills and tools to help us through these things. And that's what
Right.
I try to teach my patients and my patients' parents too. Well, you talked about the body scan or the check in, which I think is a great idea. And I love that. But what other tips can you give us to teaching mindfulness to our kids?
What I like to always say is be consistent and
Hmm.
be patient
Okay.
because learning something new takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of repetition. Make it fun. You can use guided meditations on apps like Insight Timer. Some of the books that we have at home, one of the best ones that I found is Meditation for Kids by Thejal V. Patel. It is fantastic. It's geared for younger children, like ages 4 to 8 is what it says on the cover. But you can start a little younger depending on the child, and you can use it for certainly past that age range as well. Um, Jamal Yogis has a book out that is called Mop Rides the Waves of Life. Um, there is Finding Om by Rashmi Bismarck. There's interactive toys. There's this cute little elephant called Omi by Mindful Buddies, like Buddiez, that helps kids. It's the best part about that elephant is the parent doesn't need to be there guiding the child. Um, they can just push a little paw on the elephant and it's like a guided meditation and he's just
Mm.
super cute and snuggly. So Omi follows my daughter around everywhere she goes.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't need these formalized meditations. Sometimes what they just need is, like I said, the meditation can be something as simple as like sitting with your child and doing nothing, like really just being present, seeing if you can maybe make it a game and link your breath up to each other, right? Like your breathing patterns, or see if you can trace each other's lines on your hands, right? Just finding a few minutes of day where we're not staring at a screen, our attention isn't elsewhere, and you're really connecting with your child can just be so transformative.
Mm.
um, the other thing is making it a family activity. I'm loving virtual school because it starts later than regular school used to. So while kids are still waking up in the morning at the same time, but now we have time to head outside onto the deck or inside if the weather's bad. We have our yoga mats out. We do 3 rounds of sun salutations and then we meditate together. And the
Mm.
meditation is all of maybe a minute. And it's just a very, very brief, I'll let the kids lead, empower them to, choose how they want to meditate. And doing it together as a family has really helped kind of recenter and connect us all. So that's something that I would definitely recommend is having your own mindfulness practice away from your kids, but also one where you get to use that time to connect. And then remind them and teach them that we can't just, jump into something it and then jump to the next thing.
Mhm.
There's always a transition period, right? So when you're coming into sitting down to mindfulness, to be mindful of the things you were doing before you sit down. If you've been running around and they've been watching TV or they've been playing chase or whatever, give them a few minutes to settle in. And that way, going back to expectations, your expectations, they're never going to be met, especially that first few times. So be patient, make it fun. You know, it doesn't need to be a perfect them sitting still all the time, especially if they're younger. They're not going to sit still. And that
Yes.
is okay.
Yes. Oh, those are all great tips. And I agree. I've been meditating for years. And I know that sometimes when I come to my meditation practice, I cannot settle, and I don't get frustrated with myself. I just know that there's gonna be some meditations where I'm gonna do my best, but my body's like, "Ah!" Just like
Exactly.
literally like I just got plugged into a fuse. And kids are the same way, and I love how you pointed out that for kids, these practices don't necessarily have to take a long time. I think as adults, we're like, "I sit down and do exactly this much time, and this is gonna be part of our routine, whatever." But for kids, it's all about just getting that habit in there and helping them be aware of how important it really is so
Right.
that someday they're going to incorporate it into their own practice and they're going
Exactly.
to value it as part of their own life, something that actually contributes to their well-being. So that's
Right.
all wonderful. That's really great.
Right. And I would say also too, not to force them. If
Yes.
they're not, if today, right now is not the time, like just because, one family does it a certain way, that does not make it, right for your family or your child in that moment, in that time. So never, ever, ever force a child. I'm guilty of making this mistake and it's just don't do it.
Mhm. Yes, and that goes to a lot of things. Talk about that with food as well. So, I
Right.
think as parents sometimes, just like I said, it's the expectation thing. We want our kids to be these perfect whatevers, and then we're just like, "You're gonna do it," you know? And it
Exactly.
doesn't
Yeah.
end well, usually. It
It
usually creates
never
the
does.
opposite result, right? So, no, it's
Exactly.
great point to bring that up. Well, let me
Yeah.
shift gears just a little bit and talk about mindset specifically, because I know when we first started talking about recording this podcast together, you had some really great thoughts about how we can approach mindset in ourselves and our children when it comes to our healthy habits, even just like brushing and flossing and,
Right.
those kinds of things. So tell me a little bit about mindset and how we can help our children with their mindset when it comes to approaching healthy lifestyle
Sure.
habits.
Absolutely. Well, so there's a few things, right? Like from the outset, eating your veggies, making your bed, brushing your teeth, those are all things that really don't have to do with one another necessarily. But they do, because I think we alluded to this earlier how we as society are programmed to avoid anything that gives us discomfort. If we don't want to
Mhm.
do it, I mean, there's so many millions of dollars. Just look around with marketing. Hey, let's you know, parents buy this toothbrush and your kid, use this app and your kids will not fight you with brushing and you know, puree your foods and hide them in whatever and your kids won't fight you on eating veggies. There's all sorts of ways around things, but the reality is it's not the task that's the problem. It's our attitudes about the task. And the
Mm,
task is really second. Um, I think it's important in life to understand that overall, yes, we want to do things that serve our higher purpose, that make us happy, that fill us with joy. But there's things that we're never going to necessarily, you know, be truly thrilled about. But they're things that we can understand and accept as part of our daily, healthy, successful living.
mhm.
Um, and I feel like once you explain, there's just different ways depending on, of course, the age of the child. Um, the how you approach things like toothbrushing. Um, but sorry, I feel like I'm getting a little sidetracked here. Can you recenter me back to the
Yeah, yeah, no problem. It's how we can help our children, um, approach habits by helping them change their
right?
mindset.
Okay, so yeah, I think that the biggest thing too is acknowledge their feelings, right? Like especially the little ones. Hey, God, buddy, like I know you don't want to brush your teeth. I get that. Sometimes I don't want to brush my teeth either, right? That sense of validation is huge. Um, and it kind of opens the door for them to start thinking like, hey, maybe she's not this crazy lady. Maybe she does really understand what I'm saying, right? And that tends to calm the little monster inside of them that's screaming for attention. Um, but and I think that for younger kids, explaining on repeat, this is why we're doing this, right? Like, what happens, putting on their critical thinking hats, what do you think will happen if XYZ, right? Um, and having them tell you instead of you being the one saying, if you don't brush your teeth, you're going to get cavities. And then this is the thing I hate to hear is the dentist is going to give you a shot. And it's like, I'm not the bad guy. I mean, you know this better than anyone. The doctor's going to give you a shot. And you're just like, this, I'm not the bad guy here, right? Like, I'm here to help you. And, the veggies are not the bad guys. They're here to help keep you safe and healthy and strong. Um, and so I think that explaining in just depending on where your child is developmentally, why you're doing what you're doing will also give them less reason to fight it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
there's all sorts of fun things you can do to without the use of I'm strongly against the use of like apps, these like toothbrushing apps that I mean, and again, you guys please do what works for your family,
Mhm.
but I just discourage screen time whenever possible. I feel like in order to use an app or whatever to get your child to brush their teeth is again allowing them to avoid the fact that they're brushing their teeth in some way, shape, or form. So, making it fun, like singing a song for them, um, giving them choices like, hey, do you want to, mundane choices like, do you want to start on the top or the bottom teeth today? Do you want mom to brush your teeth or do you want dad to brush your teeth? Do you want to try to brush your teeth first and then I brush afterward? Or, just these tiny little choices will really help them feel empowered to not avoid these things that are typically labeled as parenting challenges. But the biggest thing of all is like celebrating a successful completion, even if
Yeah.
it's something small, like you spit in the sink instead of on the faucet, right? Like if it's a fight and you got them to spit in the sink, like celebrate it because if we want to build positive children and positive images for ourselves, we have to start infusing positivity at every level that we can.
Yes.
Um, so start small, but they those small choices they matter.
Yeah, that all makes so much sense. And I love how you started with validating feelings. And I would also add to that normalizing as well,
Yes,
because I think a lot of times we try to make things seem like bad or whatever, but we also don't admit to our kids that, hey, we're human too. Like I tell my kids all the time, I love donuts. Like if I could eat donuts like all day long, I
oh
would eat donuts
yummy,
all day long. I mean, donuts are delicious. Okay. Like who does not believe that donuts are delicious?
exactly,
But then we talk about, well, if I eat donuts all the time, it's not necessarily health promoting and I'm not going to feel good. My stomach is probably going to hurt. I'm not going to have the energy I want to have, maybe these sugar crashes. So I think that validating, like, yeah, I understand. I want to eat the donut or I don't want to eat my broccoli or whatever, and we feel that way. We're normalizing it. But then at the end, helping to anchor it, So
yeah,
once they do finish brushing their teeth, like, how does your mouth feel? Doesn't that feel nice when it feels all
right,
clean? Or, are you proud of yourself? Are you so glad you did something you didn't want to do, but is healthy for you? Like
right,
I think anchoring that in because believe it or not, children really do pay attention to those things, even the little ones, whenever you point it out, because that helps bring their awareness back into their body, just like talking about this mindfulness, and
right,
then remembering that. And the more they remember that, the pleasure of completing that task, the pleasure of how
right,
it feels to do that thing, the
right,
more likely it's going to become a habit. So, yeah, those are
exactly.
all great. I love how we just like broke that apart.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I really wanted to add, if I may, is gratefulness
Yes.
because the reason I am big on like things like making your bed, right? Or I mean, obviously, I'm going to be big on brushing your teeth, but um, things like that, things that we don't want to do. I think if it's so easy to complain, even as adults.
Hmm.
But the antidote to that is really gratitude, right? Like there's so many things to complain about, but there's so many more things to be grateful for.
Hmm.
And um, I tell my kids, I mean, it's we don't have toothbrush wars in our house anymore, but when we did, when they were toddlers and stuff, I would talk to them about like oh, I'm so happy that you chose to take care of your body because we've been given just this one body. And if we don't take care of it, we can't do all these fun things like eating cake or eating those yummy Brussels sprouts or, whatever it may be. The bed is an easy one for me that I keep going back to because it's like, be grateful that you had a place to sleep. That's
Yeah.
why we make our bed, right? Yes, our room looks tidy. Yes, it makes you feel like you started, accomplishing something at the very start of your day. All that, but my main reason for getting my kids to make their bed is we are grateful that we have a bed that we got to sleep in last night. And by making our bed, we're showing that we are grateful for that gift.
Mm,
And my kids make their beds. It's not
yeah.
really a fight.
Yeah. You need to come to my house and help me learn that gratitude practice about making the bed. My husband will be very happy if I learn that. I'm not the best, but I can see how that would work, and I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna make the bed and then, reflect on the gratitude I have for my
Yes.
bed. But no, I think that's beautiful. So, thank you so much for bringing that up. Well, what do you wish more parents knew?
Um, I think we touched on it earlier. It's so much of parenting is really about you, and not about the child. It's not about controlling the child. It's not about imposing, of course, we are there to guide. We are there, I'm not saying this should be permissive, but I really wish I had known from the outset that so much of the work that needs to be done is on the parent. Um, so that's one thing. But the second thing is you always have a choice. You always have a choice. No matter if you have already spewed hot anger, the second you are made aware of that, you have a choice to stop and try to turn things around. Begin again, push the reset button, do whatever you need to do to make that situation more favorable. You have a choice when it comes to the types of foods that you give your child, um, bedtimes, the type of toothpaste you pick, all of these things, like physically buying things, you have a choice. Don't be on autopilot. I encourage all parents, all people to try to wake up and make more conscious choices. Because the reality is, if you really knew what your choices were, you would probably make different ones.
Yes.
Um, and so, and that I feel like kind of goes along with the working on yourself bit,
Yes, that is so profound. And I really do believe that most people don't feel like they have a choice. They do
right?
feel trapped. They feel like, "Oh, I'm just stuck. This is the only thing I can do." But every moment is an opportunity for a reset, and it's never too late. I have moms that come to me with children that are just 18 months old, and they're just like, "I feel like I've ruined their whole health." And I'm like, "No, you haven't.
You're good.
You're
You're
good,
fine.
okay? Let's just start incorporating something new today. It's gonna
Right.
be okay." So, I love that you always have a choice. You always have a choice. That's so beautiful. Well, tell me about what personal habit you're most proud of, how you developed it, and how you maintain it.
The gratitude is certainly one thing. Um, it's been transformative. The habit of before I wake up, or not before I wake up, excuse me, when I wake up in the morning, I try to think of something that I'm really, really, really grateful for. Um, and in the beginning, it started out with like, I'm grateful for my health, I'm grateful for my husband, I'm grateful for my kids, like the obvious stuff. But the more and more I practiced it, I noticed things like I'm grateful for the way the pillowcase feels against my cheek. I'm grateful that I can feel the pillowcase against my cheek, right? Those things kind of start to develop, and it's
Mhm.
amazing to see the transformation that happens when you start practicing gratitude. Um, so I think the gratitude is certainly one thing, and again, asking why. Why am I doing this? What is my goal here? Is my goal to get my kids to brush their teeth, or is my goal to help them develop a healthy habit? Is my goal to help them do what I say and make the bed? Or is my goal to teach them gratitude for the fact that they had a bed? Is it
Mhm.
my goal to, you could go on and on and on, right? Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Or why am I expecting XYZ of my child? because then you can adjust your expectations, or you can have a conversation with your child about those expectations. And it really turns into a whole different ballgame.
Mm, I love it. That's beautiful. Yeah, and that approach to gratitude, one thing that I've realized about gratitude is that gratitude is infinite. You can break it down, you can slice it into the smallest things. I mean, just like you said, you can start with, I'm grateful for having a bed. I'm grateful for how the sheets feel. I'm grateful that this material even exists. I'm grateful for the rays of the sunlight. I'm grateful that there's even a sun. I mean, you could go on forever and ever and ever.
Yes.
And it really is a practice, because at the beginning you may only think of a few things, and the more you practice, the more you realize it's infinite. There's so many things to be grateful for, and it just leaves you with such positive feelings, good endorphins. I mean, it's just a really great practice. So,
Right.
thank you for sharing that. Well, Dr. Desai, this has been a fabulous conversation. I know that so many parents are going to benefit from listening to this episode. So, can you please tell us how listeners can connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram. It's at Dr. Desai. I have a blog. It's seemasaysnamaste.com. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much the two main ways to reach me.
Awesome. And you are a practicing dentist currently?
Yes. I'm home right now because thank you, COVID.
Yes.
But yes, I have practiced general dentistry. I've been a dentist for about 11 years now, and I've spent most of my time actually practicing dentistry and serving our geriatric population in the nursing homes.
Oh,
So, yeah, it's been a really, really amazing journey to be able to serve that population.
that's beautiful. Well, I almost went into geriatrics and then I switched into pediatrics. So I
Total
went from
opposite
one
ends.
spectrum to another, but there's actually more similarities than people think. So
100%.
that's awesome. Okay, so the last thing I would love from you is to leave us with a call to action. What one thing can we start doing today to improve our lives?
I would certainly advocate for starting a gratefulness practice. Um, it's something that takes minimal time, and you can do it whenever you want. I would suggest either first thing in the morning or before going to bed.
Mhm,
And the reason is because your thoughts and intentions for the day matter, and how you sleep at night matters, and it affects the next day. So either start your day with that feeling of gratitude, and you'll feel it, right? Like your heart's going to explode. Like that type of gratitude is what you're eventually seeking.
mhm,
But starting off the day with that, or ending the day with that, is just such physiologically, I'm sure you could explain in more depth why the endorphins and things have such a great, uh, you know, anti-stress effect and everything else. But that is something that takes very little time. You can write it down. That does help actually kind of seal it in. But if you don't have time, that's fine, right? You can always reset. You always have a choice. You can always reset a situation. Your child upset you, take a deep breath and find something to be grateful for before dealing with that situation, right? Having
mhm.
that gratitude practice is something that really, really can change your life and change the lives of those that live with you.
So beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. So glad that I've met you, and I can't wait to get to know you further and work with you further. So, thank you so much for joining us on Veggie Doctor Radio, and I hope that you have a very plantastic day.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
Hey, veggie lover. I hope that you loved today's episode. Will you take a second and do me a huge favor? Please subscribe to my podcast so that you never miss an episode. You're the reason I'm here, and I want to share it all with you. Thank you for listening, and have a plantastic day.